consumers are getting more sophisticated, and they're understanding as they sit in their cars for an hour and a half on the way home to see their children, and they get home and their children are already asleep, that they've been sold a lifestyle that isn't all that it was cracked up to be.
I was in critical mass for the first time this week. I went because I'm stuck in traffic every day, and I see the destruction. I want to get out of my car. I want some way, an alternative. And I went as a protest. That's why I went. When I was there, it was absolutely fantastic.
I saw this thing happening, and it was just such a good feeling to be there, and it had so many right-on messages, and it was like the perfect combination of do what you want to do, but be a nice person.
Last Friday of the month, bicycle ride to celebrate the bicycle and to dominate the streets for a change, to experience what it's like to be in the majority, to experience what it's like to feel safe and surrounded by fellow cyclists. That's what critical mass is.
It was great because then people would notice bicyclists, that we do exist, whereas before bicyclists were just kind of a rare anomaly, an annoyance out on the streets. And it was a situation where we were very visible. We obviously knew what we were doing. We were taking control of the situation, and people started noticing us.
I didn't count on the cop participation and how overwhelming that would get to be, and that it would be so big in the, you know, powers eyes that it would actually need to be contained. Like that whole dynamic I did not envision. I didn't think we'd be like, you know, riot in San Francisco, newsworthy top headline kind of stuff. I'd always pictured it just kind of eventually growing and growing, and you know, of course you daydream about the utopia society where everybody just rides their bike to work, you know, and of course I thought that critical mass would do that.
The notion of public space was also important to see if we could establish something on the street, a space where people could get in front of each other and actually converse and talk and interact. And the streets had become not so much a place that was had any community anymore. It was only a place to drive, and everybody's driving and everybody's in their car, and it's pretty much the same as the next car, and it's the same steering wheel, go home to see the same sitcom and everything, but everybody's doing the same thing, but they're doing it alone. And if we could get out in the bikes and be in the streets, dozens, hundreds strong, well then there's something happening there. There's a space created that, you know, it's temporary and it's even moving. And it was an experiment.
People always assume that critical mass is fundamentally and crucially about bicycling. Well, yes, it is. It's sort of inescapably about bicycling, but to reduce it to bicycling is also to miss the crucial elements of it. This exhilaration, this open-endedness, the human creativity that was sort of unleashed by this experience, I think has as much or more to do, really more to do, with being a new kind of public space.
It was crashed.
I think it was all about, can we get some people to come out and be together and actually meet up at the same time in the same place. That alone was like, who knows, you know, maybe they'll come, maybe they won't. Maybe we'll come, maybe we won't, you know, we didn't really know.
I mean, we just talked about it for a long time, and then Chris started handing out some flyers on 7th and Market, and we started making more propaganda pieces, and we started the Commute Clot in September of 1992. And it was the Commute Clot for a couple of months at about 30, 40, 50, 60 riders each month, somewhere in there. And then we saw the movie Return of the Scorcher. And the name had to become Critical Mass. Scene in there is about the bike riding in China.
Buses, taxi cabs, and motorcycles coming through intersections with no traffic lights. And this kind of innate ability that they've developed over time to make that work. But there were rules operating under the surface that worked very well. It was a kind of critical mass thing where all the cyclists would pile up and then go. All the cyclists going, say, turning left in an intersection would wait in the middle until they had enough numbers to force through the cars and make them stop.
And as soon as they reached what this interviewee had called critical mass, then the bikes went through. And that just captured the spirit perfectly. So it became critical mass right then.
I just counted us. There's 200 of us this time. 190. Rad. It's a big ride.
Well, first off, critical mass was just created as a social space. There was no real objective except to ride home together. But a lot of times you did a circuitous route and you just enjoyed people's company. And that was the whole thing. You got to keep the ride fun or people aren't going to keep returning. So you don't want this political dogma to wear people down. You just want to make it fun, and whoever wants to bring their political dogma and have their political dogma subset group did it.
There isn't a commercial interest. There isn't any one group that critical mass is trying to appeal towards. I think the fact that it's done this has really helped it be inclusive, that there is no other requirement than that you bring a bike, which is probably one of the most simplest things around.
Yeah, cruiser power. Yeah, totally. Single speed, love it.
You're not contributing to buying oil or gasoline, and so you're making a statement about that. It's part of the environmental movement, again, because you're not using a car and you're not polluting the earth. You're not contributing to paving and destroying the environment that way. I find it very empowering because you're sort of taking back territory and you're reclaiming part of public property that usually isn't yours, because bikes are so forgotten when it comes to the street. It's like a Take Back the Night March for me. You're like reclaiming this territory that singly, by yourself, alone, which is usually the way that I ride, by myself, that's not my space. I feel afraid, I get harassed, I am not welcome there. And, that's what bicycling and critical mass represent for me.
So I think in terms of fine-tuning the experience, it was about what can we do to maximize our safety as we do this rather unusual thing, fill the streets with bikes, which led me right away to say, well, the red lights are obviously not relevant to us, other than if you come up to a red light, you better stop. But if you come up to an intersection and you enter it and the light turns red, the safe thing to do is for the bikes to stick together. And so there was a whole concept of trying to stick together and hold the density of the mass together, and to protect us from the side traffic, which is where the whole corking concept started.
So we would get off our bikes and stop right in front of the first car and talk to the people in the car. And usually you could get a conversation going with them, and it was all it took, 2 minutes, one light usually, and everybody was passed. And if there was people honking in the background, it was kind of a problem. So we made signs that said, "Thanks for waiting," on one side. And when the honking started, we turned it over on the other side and said, "Honk if you love bicycles."
So then the whole string of cars, you could just see them all start laughing inside their cars, and then they just didn't care because it was like the party was transferred, So we just all start laughing at them, laughing at us, and it was a riot.
That's a much more effective way of making your political point, is to get people to actually change how they think, as opposed to merely, making them firm up in their hatred or anger for you being in their way, or asserting that your way of life is better than their way of life, or all those kind of issues that are essentially revolve around guilt and admonitions and bad feelings. No, all those things are mistakes, political mistakes. And if you go into those kind of emotional spaces, you're going to get predictable responses. And the trip about critical mass was absolutely to create an unexpected and predictable space with unpredictable consequences and unpredictable reactions, both for people in it and people outside of it. And that's probably a big part of the magic at the earliest points, was that worked so well right away. Basically, we came up with a lot of techniques, and they mostly worked pretty well. I mean, we had to deal with a lot of internal issues inside of the ride, too, like the kind of people who were attracted to coming. You certainly got a lot of young, angry men right away, people who were spoiling for a fight. We would characterize them as the testosterone brigade, because they would just be, these guys would come and they'd want to go and, have a big fight with people in their cars, or have a big fight with somebody, the cops or whoever. And not that they would actually do it, that was rarely the case. But it was a certain kind of antagonistic energy that they would bring to bear on the situation. And that was part of the reason we really were very focused on promoting it as a celebration and not as a protest. And so the people who brought their angry protest energy there were encouraged to take it elsewhere, or to just get into a different spirit.
First time I've ridden this thing.
Artistic people were kind of into critical mass, and then they had this venue as far as creativity and your own sense of advertising and how you wanted to put your message out there. And here's critical mass, and you can just kind of do it. It was just a great forum for communication on a really personal level.
Mobility is something very exciting, very rewarding. I mean, that's the way we devised to punish people, is to put them in a room and not allow them to move for years on end, in a prison. So moving about is super exciting. It's like one of the most exciting things. So therefore, to look at how a society chooses to move about within the realms of their territory is very revealing about, what type of society it is. And that in a place like downtown San Francisco, a thing like critical mass should sort of appear out of the blue, for most people out of the blue, is super exciting, in terms of a document of how many people there were that were thinking differently at the same time, and in touch with a bunch of other people that were thinking differently with them in the same direction, So I guess I use like traffic metaphors a lot because of that. I spent quite a bit of time studying billboards, or just looking at billboards first. After I did that, I started noticing these other things that were also out on the street that were even simpler and more direct and kind of more authoritarian, that told you what to do, and if you didn't do them, you can literally get hurt, die, or be fined by society, And since most of the way I encountered these things was be on foot or on a bike, it even made less sense to me, like a one-way street. It's clearly like a cultural determination, a rule, It looks just like any other street, you can zigzag, you can walk, So that seemed like a rather loaded way to communicate, because people are already, when they look towards the sign, they're ready to see meaning, they're ready to see instruction. And so it was interesting for me to use that delivery system and replace a clear instruction with a doubt or a puzzlement.
That challenges societal norms, challenges people in their car, do something until somebody says you can't, and then say, well, why not? And then open the dialogue there. And that's what critical mass did.
It was at the beginning of critical mass. It was Friday in February '93, I believe. And we wanted to create something dramatic for ourselves to express our general irritation with the condition of street travel and roads. And getting doored is obviously a major part of that experience. And so we came up with this idea, the Chrysler Imperial car door with a bicycle hurtling into it and the mannequin flying over the top. And my co-Department of Public Art members worked on this for a couple of weeks, from the welding and manufacturing the whole thing. And then that morning we got together with a borrowed truck and our paper suits that we'd bought and our new logo and our new clipboard and our new work order from the non-existent Department of Public Art. Who knows where it comes from? Who knows why it's there? Who knows what it's trying to say? You look at it, you think about it, you take it off with you, the thoughts, the memories, the visuals, and having done so, you have a conversation. You have an additional thought of what you can do yourself in life. You get a wrinkle on something you were already thinking about, that suddenly you think about it in a slightly different way. The expectations of what you can do, what you can get away with, are altered because something's been gotten away with and it's been in your face. So guerrilla art is very powerful and very weak at the same time. It is everything. It could cause anything at all, and it could cause nothing at all, and we don't know until we do it. And in the doing of it is the satisfaction. It's not necessarily about results.
There's something about going to a large crowd of people and being able to hand out a flyer and just give it to people and hope that you disseminate information, get discussion going. But most of us have access to photocopy machines. We can go out and type up something and give it out and see what happens.
Excellent. You think you might come on it next time?
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Yeah.
We didn't want to use the media to spread our message. The whole idea was to have a very slow, grassroots, evolving movement that never relied on traditional means of communication that they are now. We wanted word of mouth, xerocracy, no leaders, everybody doing things on their own, people who were self-responsible, who could cork their own ride, who did their own thing and then came together and then did it with other people.
Only carefully defined about what it wasn't. And by doing that, it left it wide open for all these different kinds of people to make it their own. And I saw that happen over and over in the streets of San Francisco, and it would always just give me this incredible thrill to find somebody else who I've never seen in my life stopping on the side of the street and talking to somebody else and telling them what critical mass is. And I don't care what they said, hardly even. I mean, sometimes I just outright disagreed with it, but most of the time it was just an amazing thing to see people own it. And own it as their own, something they had chosen to do and they had made it their own. And that's an incredibly powerful moment when that starts to happen on such a grassroots scale and spreads by word of mouth primarily around the city, around the Bay Area, and pretty soon around the state and around the world.
think the most amazing feeling is that the streets are much quieter. Apart from the, the cheers and the screams and the sort of the delight of all the people cycling, there's not that ambient traffic noise. We're getting a few families and people who are just interested in people coming along to see what the hell's going on, and they're realising their own deep concern for the city, and there aren't many forums for expression of that concern. So I think we're getting a lot of people coming along to critical mass because they see it as one way that they can stand up and wave and say, well, we're doing something to offer an alternative, to show a different way of life.
I'm sitting in the middle of a bunch of flyers related to critical mass from different places. What is this? I think that's from England somewhere. Here's LA, Chicago. Here's New York City. This one is, hey look, it's Grateful Mass, which is very much, it owes a lot of its graphic stuff to the Grateful Dead albums and their whole scene, and this was put out after Jerry Garcia, the guitar player for the Grateful Dead, after he died up in Marin, and many people were sad, and he was an icon here in San Francisco, and the critical mass that took place after he died, one of the route proposals was this Grateful Mass going out to Golden Gate Park. It was one of many proposals, and it was voted on, and it won. This was me learning how to use CorelDRAW on the PC, and I discovered the blend fill tool, and I made all these little triangles coming out of this guy's head. I made him on his bicycle in a wave. We were going to try to take critical mass all the way out to the beach, which it hadn't been that far yet, and it went out to the beach. This is the second anniversary. We're at about 800 strong or so, maybe upwards of 1,000. It shows the crowd, as we've obviously taken about 4 city blocks here, solid wall-to-wall bikes. These are examples of little stickers and little things that come out, and people hand these out at critical mass all the time. They do them for their own reasons, and they hand them out, and it's great to see. This is a 1/100th of the things that I've seen, if that. This is one that came out in Halloween. I think the good time nature of Halloween and critical mass goes hand in hand, and every Halloween ride has been great.
Yeah, hit it! Play it again! I'll drink to that!
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
It's a good witch! She's on a bicycle! I want candy!
Candy! Candy!
You blouse-wearing poodle walker!
Excuse me, your car needs a tune-up.
I don't know what's the problem. And I don't care. My car, I can do whatever I want to.
Call home!
Oh, yeah,
Hold the mushrooms! Extra anchovies!
We've done something that we think is a demonstrably preferable way of going about moving our bodies through the city. And not everybody can make that decision at every moment, and it's really absurd to assume that they can. People in cars are our allies. They really are. Anybody who's riding in a car is essentially a victim of the oil and automobile industries, as we have been and will be again in our lives. And they're the ones who are finally going to have to be won over if we're really going to change this world. Because they're not the enemy. They're the people they're us. They are us.
We weren't there to inconvenience people, not to shove the misery of their Friday commute in their face, not to disturb public transit riders or to make the ordeal of driving home on Friday afternoon more unpleasant. But we were, and some people saw that But a lot of people just saw the immediate reaction like, what are these stupid bicyclists doing on the road? This is ridiculous.
Kind of ridiculous. I mean, waiting for traffic, trying to get through.
Mr. Gregg, my opinion is I love it.
As far as the bikers messing up the city, no, lock them up, take away their bikes. No, can't break the law. It's not there. It's not. They don't own it, neither do the cars.
We just get a broad range of people, but I think by and large people liked us.
The second period of time was when the police got involved, and that was a big transition. As we were going up Market Street, somebody tried to push through the crowd in their car, and there was a confrontation. So when the police got involved, it changed everything, and the police got involved simply because of that confrontation. They decided to accompany the ride from then on.
When the cops showed up, they created this barrier, this membrane between the mass and the rest of the world. And what used to happen is we would pass out flyers to people going by to try to tell them what's going on and invite them to the situation. And what they did is they shut us off from the rest of the world. They made us into this kind of anomaly, this parade. And people perceived the situation also, which I thought was even worse, is that we wouldn't be safe unless the cops were there. That it was for our benefit. It was that there would be some horrendous collision or carnage if the police were not there. That we were incapable of creating safe streets by ourselves, which is completely untrue.
Hey, what's up, Cash?
Hey. They did this. I hold them fully responsible. Because there were cops, because they were angry, they made people angry. Because people got angry, somebody got out of hand. And somebody
That guy
got out of
wasn't
hand.
even out of hand.
What happened? Somebody got arrested.
He got arrested for making an illegal left turn. He was in the wrong lane and he pulled the turn.
Okay.
If you don't pick up the pace, you'll be issued a citation for impeding traffic. You better move on. You better move on.
I'm moving.
You're not fast enough. You better move on. You're impeding traffic. Then get out of the ride.
In the months before the July '97 ride that got so much national attention for the San Francisco critical mass, there were thousands of riders, and very few of those riders were activists, and very few of those riders knew what was happening with the rides. Very few of them had any information about how they could participate in guiding the rides in one way or another. It wasn't like the first few rides, the first dozen rides, where people brought flyers saying, this is what I think should happen in critical mass, and this is where we should go next time, and what do you think about this, and let's talk about that.
Since we don't really have a route tonight, how about a destination where we all meet at 8 o'clock? And I'm taking nominations for 8 o'clock destinations. Is that okay with everybody?
It takes being around the scene for a while to understand how to work like that, and that it's by cooperative methods rather than an authoritarian way. And it's so different from the way anything else is run that I think it's at once befuddling, but at another way it's really liberating.
If you go to the front of a critical mass ride during the period of 1994 through 1997, you would see all kinds of people who were not involved in organizing the rides, had never even thought about how the rides were organized, didn't really ask themselves, why is it that the police are at the front of this ride? And when the police would zoom ahead to block the traffic for us, they would zoom ahead too. And those people weren't there for social activism and political activism, but ironically what made the event so powerful was that it attracted people into that feeling of non-commercial public event that was so exciting to be in, that was such a break from the usual scary streets of San Francisco or scary streets of whatever suburb they came from. Unfortunately, I think that people shy away from activism for simple practical reasons. are focusing most of our energy on material goods, and we're focusing a lot of our energy on shopping for those material goods, and we're focusing a lot of energy on making sure that we have the right material goods so that we're not scorned by others. And it's a very painful thing for us to look at because it takes away from everything else we really want to do.
I think the capacity to experience something radically new depends on an imaginative frame of mind. And I think that a lot of people might come to critical mass with an expectation that it's going to just be a bike ride with a bunch of people. But even then, even in the most narrow expectations, you're going to be on the street, you're riding down the street, you don't know what's going to happen. And you're going to have a tangibly different experience of the urban environment while you're moving through the city. And so there's a little bit of living that better world's experience in critical mass, which can't help but influence your imagination, because suddenly you've tasted it. You know what it's like to actually be in a new, free space with a bunch of vibrant, interesting, good-looking human beings. Anything could happen. Well, you hope it can.
First time?
Yeah, I just stumbled on it.
Cool. You mean you were riding your bike anyway, and there it was?
There it was.
Today?
Yeah.
Damn.
Just coming down Market Street.
Where do you live?
GL.
Wow, that's wild. That's really wild. Did you know it existed?
I heard of it, but I don't really know much about it at all.
So what do you make of it now that you're in it? You're one of.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. What does it feel like?
Pretty together, like a big family.
It started to be so interesting about what would happen at the next critical mass that it became the social highlight of what I was doing at the time. And it was great. It was wonderful to prepare for, and it was magical when it was going on. And then you would think back about how great it was and what you could do next time to make it better or make it different or whatever.
And then a lot of different people began to participate in planning different routes and planning different ways of doing critical mass and having fun with it. And that went on pretty much unendingly all the way until early '97. And then you get through most of first part of '97, you get to June '97 when it goes to Sausalito, as it has generally gone year after year since about the third year. And apparently our mayor, Willie Brown, got stuck in traffic. So he made a very threatening and inflammatory comment that led to a media frenzy in the boring middle news lull of the summer.
The media twisted our participation in that event as making a deal with the city on the route of critical mass. And that was a complete lie. When the headlines hit the papers, the politicians needed somebody to represent critical mass so bad that they portrayed our board as representing critical mass.
It was not possible for the mayor to engineer what would happen with critical mass. How was he going to stop the ride? There just wasn't any way. There's no leadership. There's nobody you can convince to say, okay, don't bring your people out here to ride. And what were they going to do? Arrest everybody? There's just too many people to arrest everybody. And I realized that, and I think the bicyclists realized that, and eventually the mayor's office began to realize that. And then it was a scramble to save face.
And so that real vibrant sense of our independence was obviously under great threat in July. And we showed up down there bent on proving that we weren't answering to them or to anybody. That we were going to have critical mass like we'd always had it. We would go where we want to go, we would leave when we want to leave, and we would do what we want to do.
We had a very productive meeting the other day. And at that meeting, it was agreed upon that the route tonight would start at 6:30. And that people would agree to stay on the designated route. There's been a lot. The designated route is going to start at 6:30. A couple of notes about the route tonight. First of all, and this is your route.
They started welcoming us to our own critical mass. What a joke.
So then Martel gets done with his speech, and then the mic becomes open through some weird mismanagement, and people start going up there and, you know, talking, and then this guy got up there, and I was, come on, like, you know, ringing my bell and going, come on, you guys, we voted on our ride, let's go, you know, shring, shring, and they would just not budge. And so I'm like, gee, you know, so I hear that, like, I hear different people going on, I'm like, man, it's an open mic.
Say no to the police route.
The right path in the transmitting terminal, save them.
Get everybody to ohm together. Have a moment of silence. Do something where everyone can agree. Be nice to one another beforehand. You have such power to... All right. I want to all start singing together. One big long ohm, you know, maybe something peaceful, something altogether joyful, perhaps.
No, get out of here! It's like, get off the stage! And I'm like, oh my God, you know, I mean, come on, we got this energy and you want to sing a song, which is beautiful in its own way, but it just wasn't the moment, you know?
I'd like to say that we've had a vote, and I think that you guys need to wake up to something, and that is that critical mass is not about the police. It's about bicyclists. And if we ride on a route that we chose, we have the right to do that. We will not have to worry about facilitation if you take responsibility for intersections. You stop if you're worried about getting ticketed. It's not beyond your reach. We voted on it, so let's get out of here and ride our ride.
They said, let's go right now. And everybody just stood there, oh, what do we do now? And they wouldn't leave. There was a lot of us who were agitating very hard for that in the crowd, but there was this dynamic of passivity. You put a stage out in front of people with a sound system, they're going to stand there and stare at it until they're told to leave.
In about 10 minutes, you're going to start a typical San Francisco event. You're going to move around the city. You're going to enjoy yourself. And you're even going to tolerate those who don't want to hear others speak. I'm delighted that the bicyclists of San Francisco sat down with the city and with themselves for the purpose of putting together a program that will consistently make San Francisco the most livable city in the country. I hope you can follow the route. I hope my officers and all others who are assisted, including your monitors, will be as effective as they need to be. Have a good ride.
I was in the middle of that police riot, and I really had no idea what was going on. And I captured the whole thing on video, and as soon as it was over, I was on the phone trying to get in touch with Channel 5 and Channel 4 and all of the mainstream news media. People did not know that that happened because Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, and Channel 7 did not use that footage.
Despite an agreement to start the ride later and follow a prescribed route, hundreds of cyclists took off in other directions, and thousands followed, often unaware they were following the wrong group.
Well, obviously it was a terrible mess.
The terrible mess disrupted traffic, resulted in 250 arrests and injuries to 2 police officers.
Witnessed people going through red lights blatantly and kicking cars, and you don't have the right to do that.
I think the citizens saw exactly what the results would be if you let the bicyclists do anything they please.
As our experiences were represented back to us in the mass media, it became very hard to stay on the offensive. And critical mass, if anything, has always been about being on the offensive. It's about changing the rules, changing the borders of what's possible, and not accepting the rules of daily life as they're set down from on high.
I think that their response was really like heavy-handed. And the mayor's attitude in this one was the same way. That it was that the critical mass inconvenienced him and some other people, and because so many other people drive, that we're going to stop critical mass.
What was reported in the papers after the July ride the next morning was that 250 people had been arrested. It turned out that that number was actually greatly inflated. Only about 110 people were arrested. Of those 110 people, the vast majority of them were arrested in what I call an illegal sweep. They were all arrested at the corner of Sacramento and Montgomery when the police just cordoned off the street and collected all the bicyclists that happened to be riding in that direction, surrounded them, arrested them, and took them all to jail. And in not a single one of those cases was there a conviction. None of those people were convicted. One of the cases that I personally handled that was a misdemeanor case was of a girl who was arrested for assault on a police officer. And the videotape showed that what the officer had written in his police report wasn't true. The videotape showed this huge officer sitting on top of my client, who was a rather small girl, and did not show her doing anything except attempting to get out of his way.
We knew that we hadn't done anything particularly wrong or different than what we'd done before. In fact, if anything, we just had more fun doing it. And yet all these lies, this incredible frenzy of outright falsehoods was being broadcast and disseminated throughout the press. And we didn't really have any way to respond to that. I mean, if we'd been a little faster, a little more clever, with a little more media savvy of our own, we might have tried to contest it, but I took the attitude of the time, and I kind of don't think it was wrong, really, was just lay low. This stuff will blow over and everybody's going to forget about it. Pretty much a year later, I can say that that was true, that did happen that way, and now we're back, and we're back in large numbers, and we're having the same fun we ever had, and most of us never stopped.
It's neat.
Hey, is this your first critical mass?
Yeah.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, it's mine too.
Great, good. What are you looking forward to about it?
I just love here doing it. It's just like fun, you know. It's fun. Join the party. I love this.
Giving out roses. That's great. Hey, how's it going?
I was on the one where we got arrested, me and my boy right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were down, man. We were like,
you guys
hey.
both got arrested?
Yeah, and our other buddy that's back here, because they say we were like
unlawful assembly.
Yeah, failure to
Yeah, you guys look really bad.
Yeah, we're bad guys.
Especially on those bicycles.
You're back riding.
I'm back. I was here.
We never stopped.
Yeah, I was back that next month. And
That's
so it was
great.
cool. Yeah, it was cool.
What's your favorite thing about critical mass?
The people, you just kind of, well, I mean, I like riding my bike, but I'm not going to ride through the city if I'm by myself because I'm going to get run over. But if there's 200 people in a little clump with me, then, you know, they can't run us all over. So. Oh, we're going to go around the circle! I love it!
In 1991, before critical mass, there were not that many bikes out there. And today there are so many. And any given day you go to Market Street, you're going to see clots of 10 to 20 to 30 bikes riding by during the rush hour in either direction, routinely, absolutely normal every day. And that's going to influence anybody, child or adult's sense of the city and its possibilities. And a lot of people have taken the critical mass experience as an instigation to get on a bike. I know dozens and dozens of people who I've met personally who said, you know, thanks to critical mass, I started riding, and this is great. I've saved tons of money. I'm having a great time. I met new people. I have a whole different life. And it's changed people's lives in a really tangible way, on a very concrete sense, on a day-to-day level. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, that's as much as we could hope for. Today, tomorrow we can hope for more. But today, that's as good as it gets. And that's pretty good.